For weeks, every morning started the same way. I woke up with a tight throat, feeling as if I had a stone on my chest. When I coughed, thick, annoying, sticky phlegm came up. And worst of all, it wouldn't go away. No matter how much I tried to spit it out, no matter how much warm water I drank, no matter how many salt gargles I did, that feeling stayed there. It was as if my body couldn't finish cleaning out what was inside. At first I thought it was just a passing annoyance, maybe a poorly healed cold, or the damp weather that sometimes seeps into your bones and lungs. But days passed, and instead of getting better, the cough became more persistent, drier during the day and heavier at night. Sleeping became a challenge, and when I managed to rest a few hours, I woke up with that same heaviness on my chest, as if my body hadn't done its job during the night. I went to the doctor. They prescribed syrups, throat lozenges, even talked about allergies, but nothing seemed to work. The cough didn't disappear, and the most frustrating part was that each new remedy came with new promises, and the same disappointments. I found myself trapped in a cycle I didn't understand, where the only constant was that cough that wouldn't let me live peacefully. There was a moment when I thought, maybe this will be like this forever. I accepted that years bring their things, that lungs aren't the same anymore, that perhaps this was part of aging. But inside me, something told me I shouldn't give up yet. And that's when something unexpected happened. A casual conversation in an unexpected place led me to discover a route I had never tried. It wasn't a pharmacy syrup, nor an expensive treatment, nor a lab secret. It was a natural route, used for generations in other cultures, forgotten by many, but powerful in its simplicity. And when I decided to try it, honestly, I didn't expect much. But what happened in the next 48 hours changed everything. The phlegm began to loosen. The cough, which had interrupted me even while talking, started to disappear. I slept for the first time in weeks without waking every hour. And the most surprising, I felt energetic again. Not only was my throat better, I felt lighter, clearer, more alive. In this video, I want to tell you exactly what I did. I will explain step by step what this route is, how I prepared it, why it works so well, what you should consider if you decide to try it, and what science says about its effects. Because if you are going through the same thing I did, if you have felt trapped in a body that no longer responds like before, then you need to know there are still solutions. I don't promise miracles, but I can share my experience with complete honesty, because if this helps you as much as it helped me, then it will have been worth sharing. Before we continue, I want to get to know you a little more. Tell me in the comments, how old are you, and from which country are you watching me? I would love to read you and know where you are joining me on this journey toward a healthier life, free from that annoying cough that won't leave you alone. Hold. It all started very mildly. A soft cough, almost like a throat clear, the kind you do after talking a lot or when the weather changes. I didn't pay much attention. I thought it was temporary, maybe some dust, a reaction to cold air. But that cough wouldn't go away. Day after day, it became more persistent. At first, it only appeared in the mornings, but then it started creeping into the afternoons, and then the nights too. It was as if my body wanted to expel something that never fully came out. Every time I tried to rest, there it was, the cough. Sometimes dry, other times accompanied by thick phlegm, and each episode left me more tired, more irritated, more exhausted. The nights became torture. I woke up once, twice, 3 times with coughing fits. My throat burned, my chest ached. Sometimes I had to sit up in bed, lean forward, and breathe deeply to calm down. I got up more tired than when I went to bed. Sleeping well became a distant memory. My voice also changed. It lost strength. Sometimes it sounded hoarse, broken, as if I were always sick. Talking on the phone was hard, and when I tried to have a long conversation, I ended up coughing mid-sentence. I felt frustrated. I couldn't communicate calmly, and that, for someone who values words, was especially hard. But the worst part wasn't physical. It was emotional. I began avoiding family gatherings. I was embarrassed to cough in public. Once I went to a mass and had to leave halfway because I couldn't stop coughing. Everyone looked at me, some with pity, others with discomfort. I felt judged, like something was wrong with me. I stopped going to the supermarket. I avoided elevators, public transport. Every time I entered a closed place, anxiety rose. What if I get a coughing fit now? What if I can't control it? I didn't want to bother others. I didn't want to be that person who interrupts, who annoys. So little by little, I shut myself in. I cancelled plans, stopped visiting friends. My world became smaller. And every day, that cough seemed to remind me something inside me wasn't working right. I tried everything. Infusions, vapors, pharmacy syrups, recommendations from acquaintances. Some remedies relieved me a bit for a while, but it always came back. That feeling of having something stuck in my chest, that itch in the throat that wouldn't calm, that constant need to cough. And the most desperate thing, doctors didn't find anything serious. It seems like irritation, they told me. Maybe an allergy. But no one gave me a real solution. That's when hopelessness set in. I began to think I'd live like this forever, that I had to get used to this new version of me, a limited, tired, isolated person with a cough that never gave a break. And it is at that darkest point, just when I felt there was nothing left to do, that change began. Dang. Over time, I started asking myself questions. Why didn't this cough go away? Why did I feel phlegm every day, even though I had no fever, no cold, no flu? Could it be that something in my body had changed, without me noticing? And the answer, although no one told me directly, came when I began to research and observe what was happening to me and others my age. The truth is, as we age, our bodies start to work differently, and lungs are no exception. Over the years, lungs lose elasticity. They no longer expand and contract with the same ease. The muscles that help us breathe also weaken, making it harder to expel air, or even to cough forcefully. What our body once did effortlessly now costs more. And if we add that the throat becomes more sensitive and the mucous membranes thinner, we have the perfect ground for a persistent cough. Another big culprit many don't consider is reflux. Yes, that burning sensation we sometimes feel in the stomach, that acidity that rises up the esophagus, can cause a chronic cough without us realizing it. Stomach acid, when it rises into the respiratory tract, irritates the throat, causes inflammation, and triggers the cough reflex. And the strange thing is that sometimes you don't feel the burning, but the cough is there every day, like a silent symptom of reflux. There are also poorly treated or poorly healed infections. Sometimes we had bronchitis, a strong flu, a throat infection, and we never fully recovered. There's residual inflammation in the airways that keeps causing cough or mucus trapped that the body can't fully eliminate. And that drags on for weeks, even months. And there is another detail I discovered that seemed fundamental. Many medications we take daily, especially for blood pressure, heart, or even for sleep, have side effects that affect the throat. Some dry out the airways, others irritate the bronchi. It's not that they are wrongly prescribed, but their cumulative effect can cause cough to appear or persist. And then there's the environment: dry weather, dust, pollution, seasonal changes. Our bodies, being more sensitive, react stronger. I noticed that on certain days, especially when it was windy or there was a lot of pollen, my cough got worse. Even air conditioning or heating could trigger stronger episodes. And what does the body do about all this? It produces phlegm. Phlegm is a defense mechanism. The body produces it to trap bacteria, dust, irritants. It's its way to protect us. But there is a problem. There comes a point when the body no longer knows how to get rid of it well. It accumulates, thickens, gets stuck in the lungs or throat, and causes more coughing. It's a feedback loop. I cough because I have phlegm, and I have phlegm because my body is irritated. All this sounds complex, but it really has a simple explanation. The body tries to help us, but it no longer has the same strength or precision as before. And that's where I found hope. Because if we understand what's happening inside us, we can find gentler, more natural, and effective ways to help the body do what it can no longer do well by itself. At that moment, I understood my problem was not just the cough, it was everything behind it. And if I wanted to improve, I had to look beyond a simple syrup. I had to go to the root. For weeks, maybe months, I tried everything. I'm not exaggerating when I say my bathroom shelf looked like a pharmacy. Every bottle, every box, every remedy represented a new hope, a small illusion that this time it will work. I started with the most common, cough syrups. I tried those that soothed the throat, those that loosened the phlegm, those that promised to cut the cough at its root. Some relieved me for a while, especially those with a sedative effect. But after a few hours, the cough came back, and stronger, as if my body was angry for having silenced it temporarily. I realized I was only covering the symptom, not solving anything. Then came inhalers. A doctor thought it might be early asthma or chronic bronchial inflammation. He prescribed a corticosteroid inhaler. At first it seemed to work. The cough decreased a bit, but didn't disappear. Then they gave me another one with bronchodilators, and after that, a combination of both. But deep down I knew I didn't have asthma. I didn't feel chest tightness, nor wheezing when breathing. It was something else. Then came nebulizers. I remember sitting every night in front of that machine, breathing vapor with medicine for 15 or 20 minutes. I expected to feel an immediate change, but relief, if it came, was very mild. It only left me with a moist feeling in my throat and a bit dizzy. The next day, everything was the same. I also tried many home remedies. I was told about eucalyptus tea, boiling leaves with lemon, placing sliced onion on the bedside table. I did it all. Vapors with hot water and salt, honey with garlic, even thyme and ginger infusions. Some warmed my chest, others made me sweat. But nothing seemed to remove that phlegm clinging to me like a shadow. And the most worrying, I took antibiotics, even without being sure I had an infection. Sometimes doctors prescribed them just in case. And tired of coughing, I accepted them. But days went by, and the cough remained. I started feeling weak, with an upset stomach, as if those medicines were doing more harm than good. And I wasn't wrong. I was weakening my defenses for a battle I didn't even know if it was necessary. After all that, one night I sat quietly, alone, with a cup of tea in my hands, and asked myself a question that changed everything. Am I treating the symptoms or the origin of the problem? And that's when I realized something very clear. I was fighting the cough with everything I could find, but I had never really looked for why my body was reacting like this. Why it produced phlegm, why it couldn't eliminate it, why every syrup seemed to put out the fire for a few hours, but not put out the cause of the blaze. Sometimes you go to the doctor and get quick solutions, because science seeks to relieve discomfort, but it doesn't always stop to listen to what the body is trying to say. And my body spoke to me every day, with that persistent cough, that endless throat clearing, that feeling of not being able to breathe freely. I had spent time, money, and lots of energy trying to calm the surface. But what I really needed was to look inside, to the root. And just when I didn't expect much more, when I had almost accepted that this would be my new normal, something happened that changed everything. When I already felt I had exhausted all possible options, the solution came in the most unexpected way. It didn't come from a doctor or a pharmacy, nor from a new foreign syrup. It came from someone who had crossed my path silently for years, and until that moment, I hadn't imagined she could change my life with just a few words. I was sitting on the park bench, the one I usually go to read in the afternoons. Although those days, more than reading, I just sat to breathe what I could and watch life go by. I was coughing, of course, always coughing. I tried to hide it so as not to bother others, but by then it was impossible. That's when Mrs. Amelia approached me, a lifelong neighbor. An older woman, one of those who still grow herbs in her yard and always smell of basil, rosemary, and homemade soap. She looked at me with those clear and calm eyes, and without beating around the bush said, "That thing you have in your chest won't go away with syrups, sir. That needs root." I didn't know what to say. I was a bit embarrassed, to be honest. I didn't like that they noticed how much the cough affected me. But she didn't seem to judge me. She just listened while I briefly told her what I had tried, the medicines, the teas, the doctor visits. She nodded slowly and calmly repeated, "I went through the same thing. I felt like I was drowning, until my grandmother made me an infusion with a very old root. And in 2 days, sir, 2 days, my chest cleared like nothing." I must admit that at first, I didn't fully believe her. I thought it was one of those nostalgic stories without much real basis. But something in her way of speaking made me doubt my skepticism. She told me that root had been used for generations, especially in the countryside, when there were no hospitals nearby, and pneumonia could be serious. "It's not magic," she clarified, "but it helps the body do what it must: clean, release, and heal." She didn't tell me the name. She only said that if I was truly willing to try something different, something natural and deep, I should come by her house the next day. And I did. That night I didn't sleep well, not only because of the cough, but because of curiosity. How could it be that after so much searching for solutions, a neighbor offered me something so simple, and that according to her worked better than anything else? The next day I went to her house and she showed me the root. It was brownish, oddly shaped, somewhat twisted, and had a strong, earthy, penetrating smell. She didn't want to tell me its name immediately. "First research it," she said. "I don't want you to take it just because I say so. I want you to know what you're putting in your body." And so, I began my own search. I sat in front of the computer and started reading. Old articles, testimonies from people who had used it, even medical studies mentioning its effect on the airways. I discovered that this root had natural expectorant properties, helped loosen phlegm, reduce bronchial inflammation, and even strengthen the immune system. The most curious thing was that almost no one talked about it in mainstream media. It wasn't as famous as eucalyptus or ginger. It was like a whispered secret, something people from before knew. But we had stopped using over time. And then I knew I was going to try it. Not because I distrusted medicine, not because I rejected what I had tried, but because I felt that finally I had found something that didn't seek to cover the problem, but to face it at the root, literally. What happened next is something I still find hard to explain. Tack. The next day, with the decision made, I went back to Mrs. Amelia's house. She was waiting with a small paper bag in her hand and a calm smile, as if she knew this moment would mark a before and after. "It's called marshmallow root," she finally told me. "And no, it's not the sweet many know, the one that melts in hot chocolate. We're talking about the original plant, which for centuries has been used as a natural remedy for lungs, throat, and persistent cough." The first thing she explained was that marshmallow doesn't act like a modern syrup that masks the problem. This root softens, moistens, helps the body release phlegm naturally, and soothes bronchial irritation without harming them. "It won't cure you in 10 minutes, she warned me, but you'll feel your body start working in your favor." This is how she told me to prepare it. I took 1 tablespoon of dried marshmallow root, put it in half a liter of cold water, and let it steep for at least 4 hours, although she recommended doing it overnight for better results. This preparation method is called cold maceration, and it's very important because excessive heat can destroy some of its most beneficial components, like mucilage, which is the substance that soothes the throat and protects the lungs. After the hours passed, I strained the liquid and heated it just a little, just enough to make it pleasant to drink. No boiling, no microwave. All gentle, natural, as it should be. I took 1 cup in the morning on an empty stomach and another before going to sleep. At first I thought nothing would happen. I had so much accumulated skepticism that it was hard to believe something so simple could make a difference. But that very night, something changed. For the first time in weeks, I didn't wake up choking. The cough remained, yes, but it was no longer harsh or sharp. I felt my chest beginning to loosen, my throat no longer burning like before, and the phlegm started coming out more easily without effort. On the second day, the improvement was even clearer. I coughed less, breathed better, and inside, something told me I was finally on the right path. It wasn't a miracle. There was no magic, but there was a real, tangible reaction in my body. And the best part, no side effects, no feeling of depending on a dose every few hours like with artificial syrups. For 5 days straight, I repeated the process. Always the same dose, the same preparation, the same calm. I also kept some precautions Mrs. Amelia recommended. No cold drinks, avoid dust, and try to rest well. Marshmallow helped, but the body needed its part of rest to heal completely. After a week, the phlegm that tormented me was almost gone. The cough only appeared occasionally, like a distant echo of what it was. But beyond the symptoms, the most valuable thing was the feeling of regaining control over my body, feeling that not all was lost, that there were still things to discover and remedies to value. And the nicest thing of all was that this was not given to me by an expensive medicine or a new laboratory treatment. It was given to me by a forgotten root, an ancient recipe, and the calm wisdom of a neighbor who only wanted to help. Now, whenever I hear someone complain about a cough that won't go away, I can't help but tell them this story. Because maybe, like it happened to me, what they need is not more pills, but to go back to basics. Listen to the body, give it what it needs, and trust. The first day was a mix of skepticism and hope. After so long trying things that didn't work, a part of me resisted believing that a root could make a difference. But there was something different this time. I didn't feel artificial effects, nor that numbness syrups cause. What I felt was softness. That first day, the phlegm began to change. It didn't disappear. It wasn't a miraculous turnaround, but it became less thick, more fluid. It was no longer that dense mass that seemed trapped in my chest. It began to move, to come out with less effort. And with that, the irritation that had been burning my throat for weeks also decreased. I noticed it at noon, without a thermometer or a doctor. I noticed because for the first time in a long time, I could swallow without pain, speak without clearing my throat every 2 sentences. There was still a cough, of course, but it was no longer violent. It was a cough that freed, not punished. That night, I drank the second cup of the infusion with a certain ritual. I sat quietly, breathed deeply, and while drinking, I felt like I was giving my body a truce. It was the first night in weeks that I didn't wake, coughing in the middle of the night. I slept deeply, with long pauses and without jerks. And when I woke up, I didn't have that dry throat feeling, nor the chest weighted like a stone. The second day was even more revealing. The cough almost disappeared. Only a couple of times gently, as if my body was still closing the final chapter of a long battle. I looked in the mirror in the morning, and it was strange to notice how even my voice sounded different, clearer, less strained. It wasn't just the throat that was healing, it was also the mind. The chest, which for days had been a sounding box for the cough and oppression, now felt light. There was no noise when breathing, no effort when exhaling. I felt my body returning to its natural rhythm, that my lungs could do their work without friction. But beyond the physical, what really moved me was the emotional. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace when breathing. Not that nervous, anxious breath one has when sick and unsure if it will get worse. Not that feeling that every inhalation brings an attack. This time I simply breathed, and that was it. Without fear, without cough, without interruptions. I regained sleep. I regained my voice. And with that, I regained a part of myself I thought was lost. I went out that second day with a light smile. Not because everything was perfect, but because something inside me knew the worst was over. There was a certainty, an inner calm that came not only from a body beginning to heal, but from having found an uncommon but deeply effective solution. And when you have lived so many days trapped in discomfort, in the frustration of not being able to talk without coughing or sleep without choking, those small advances don't feel small. They feel like everyday miracles. And on that second day, I began to believe in them again. After experiencing in my own body the relief this route brought me, I felt an inevitable need. I wanted to understand why it had worked so well. Was it mere coincidence? Or was there something deeper, something science could explain? So I started researching. And to my surprise, I found that this root, ginger, has not only been used for centuries by traditional cultures in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, but has also been widely studied by modern medicine. The first thing I discovered is that ginger has mucolytic and expectorant properties. What does that mean? Basically, it helps dissolve phlegm and facilitates its expulsion. It doesn't block or suppress it like some common syrups, but collaborates with the body to release it naturally. That's why from the first day I felt the phlegm change texture and become easier to remove. Also, it has a very potent anti-inflammatory effect. This has been proven in numerous scientific studies. Ginger contains compounds called gingerols and shoggols, which act directly on the respiratory mucous membranes, reducing inflammation of the throat, bronchi, and lungs. That's why by the second day, I no longer felt my throat rough or irritated, and my chest began to open up. Another interesting property is its antimicrobial effect. Although it doesn't replace an antibiotic in severe cases, it has been shown to inhibit the growth of bacteria and viruses that often lodge in the throat or upper airways. That is, while it helps clean, it also helps prevent the infection from advancing. And not only modern science backs it, the use of ginger as a remedy for cough and phlegm dates back thousands of years. In traditional Chinese medicine, it is used to warm the lung and eliminate moisture blocking the body's channels. In Ayurvedic medicine from India, it is prescribed as one of the main remedies to balance the respiratory system and improve digestion, which in turn influences mucus production. Even the ancient indigenous peoples of America used similar roots to relieve respiratory ailments, mixing them with honey or local herbs. The knowledge was there, before laboratories or patents existed. And the most curious thing is that despite the passage of time, these knowledges remain valid and are now, more than ever, being revalued by contemporary science. Now then, is it better than a pharmacy syrup? It depends. Many commercial syrups only block the cough reflex, but don't help solve the root problem. You feel better for a few hours, but soon congestion returns. On the other hand, ginger works with your body, not against it. It doesn't numb your symptoms, it helps resolve them. It's a more natural process, maybe slower, but much more sustainable. Also, it has no significant side effects when consumed in moderation. And unlike antibiotics, it doesn't destroy your gut flora or create resistance. Of course, it's not a magic cure, nor a substitute for medical advice, but as a natural and preventive support, it has power worth knowing and using. In summary, science has confirmed what our grandparents and great-grandparents already knew, that in the roots of the earth often lies the medicine our body needs, and that when we listen to nature and give it a chance, it responds with strength and wisdom. Before you run off to prepare your ginger infusion, I want to talk about something very important: care and warnings. Because although this root was a blessing for me, not everyone reacts the same. And the last thing I want is someone getting hurt by not being well informed. First, ginger is not suitable for everyone. If you or someone you know has high blood pressure, it is important to be very careful. This root can stimulate circulation and slightly raise blood pressure, especially if consumed in large quantities or for many consecutive days. It's uncommon, but it happens. It's also not recommended for pregnant women, especially in the first months. Although some cultures use it for nausea, studies suggest that in certain doses it could affect the uterus. So, If you're pregnant or know someone who is, better avoid it or consult a professional before use. Another group that should be especially cautious are people taking blood thinners, like warfarin or aspirin. Ginger has properties that can thin the blood, and combining it with such medications could increase bleeding risk. It's also not recommended for those about to undergo surgery. And while it's a natural root, that doesn't mean it's completely harmless in all doses. Many people believe that if something is natural, it doesn't harm. But the reality is that even a plant can cause side effects if consumed wrongly or excessively. That's why dose matters. What worked for me was a mild infusion, once or twice a day, for a couple of days. I didn't drink it like water all day, nor mixed it with other remedies without knowing. Here comes another key warning. If you're taking medication for heart, diabetes, or digestive problems, you should know that ginger can alter how your body absorbs or processes them. It can enhance their effect or diminish it. In some cases, there can be interactions between root compounds and medication chemicals, causing unexpected reactions. And above all, something fundamental. If you have a severe lung infection, high fever, difficulty breathing, or phlegm with blood, don't wait for a root to cure everything. These symptoms require urgent medical attention. Ginger can be a support, yes, but it doesn't replace medical treatment or antibiotics when truly necessary. In fact, my relief with ginger was possible because I didn't have a severe infection, but a chronic case of congestion and persistent cough. In other words, it was the perfect complement in my case, but not a solution for everyone. So before trying any natural remedy, whether ginger or any other, I always recommend talking to a doctor or health professional, especially if you're over 60 or live with chronic diseases. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Bring your medication list, tell them your symptoms, and ask if you can use this as support. Deep down, wisdom lies in balance. Listen to nature, yes, but also listen to your body and those who care for you with knowledge and experience. I was lucky. I found something that helped me without complications, but it helped me also because I was prudent, because I researched, and because I didn't rush. And now that you have this information, you can make clearer, safer, and above all, more conscious decisions. Tag. If you had seen me a few weeks ago, you wouldn't have recognized me. I had a dull look, a constantly inflamed throat, and a tiredness that didn't come from the body, but the soul. The cough wouldn't let me sleep. I woke several times a night with that feeling that my chest was closing, as if something was squeezing me from inside. Every day started with phlegm, throat clearing, and a voice fading more and more. I tried everything, what they gave me at the pharmacy, what was recommended on forums, even teas, vapors, pills, but nothing felt like real relief. Everything seemed to cover the symptom for a while, only to come back the next day, the same or worse. Until a simple conversation on an ordinary day changed my course. A root, something I had ignored for years, something that in just 2 days gave me back my breath, my voice, and my rest. It wasn't a miracle. It was nature. It was ancient wisdom. It was listening to what many have known for centuries, and that we sometimes forget amid so many remedies with labels. Today, I don't just breathe better. Today, I speak calmly, sleep deeply, and wake up with a clean throat. But beyond the body, something also cleared inside me. The feeling that there was no way out, that I would have to get used to living like this. Because no, we don't have to resign ourselves to discomfort. Sometimes relief is closer than we think. We just need to look in another direction. And that's why I decided to share this with you. Because if it helped me, maybe it can help you too, or someone you know. Because sometimes what heals most isn't just what we take, but also what we share. I want to give you advice from the heart. Listen to your body. Don't ignore the signs. Don't accept discomfort as part of aging. Research, ask, try. And if something works for you, share it. because you never know who you might be helping with a single word. In fact, I'd love to hear from you. Have you tried any natural remedy that really helped with cough, throat, or chest congestion? Your grandmother, your father, a neighbor? Tell me in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if this video brought you some relief, clarity, or hope, subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about health, life wisdom, and those little discoveries that can change our day, or even our life. Also, share it with someone going through the same. Maybe your mother, your brother, a friend who can't sleep well because of the cough. Because sometimes the best gift you can give is a solution you have lived. Thank you for being here, for accompanying me to the end, and for being part of this community that grows a little more each day with real stories, useful advice, and lots of humanity. See you in the next video. Until then, take care, breathe deeply, and never stop trusting that there is always something that can help you.